Hey gang, Chris here. This is the next video in my series that I'm doing on SpAIceRocks, my Match 3 game that I built in Unity 6, almost completely with AI. You might have seen a video that I posted previous to this whole series, but at a high level, tonight I'm going to be doing a video on how I actually built the basics of the game. I'm looking at the Agentic workflows with Cline, which is a plugin for VS Code, and also Claude, which is from a company called Anthropic. If you've only heard ChatGPT, this is a different company. I'm going to show the original commands tonight and how that worked, and I'm also going to show you the costs to make the game, as well as Anthropic's website, which is something you can't see unless you sign up, but I'm going to show you how that works. Because I was a little intimidated myself to sign up, but it's really been wonderful and easy, and I think it would do a service to see it. Anyhow, my game at the time of the video is not out yet. It's on Steam. They have this thing where you got to wait 2 weeks. It's coming soon. So it's coming out on January 20th, but you can get to it. I'll put the link there. I'll also put a link to my GitHub, which let's see if I can just bring that up real. Chris Harden, SpAIceRocks. All right, so I'm all zoomed in here for that picture thing, but it's all available now. You can download the code. You can run the code today. You can build the whole thing today if you wanted to. But let's jump right in. If you want to just play the game, you can either build it yourself or you can wait until it comes out on Steam. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to go to, first off, just to Unity Hub. So the game is right here. It's called SpAIceRocks. But for the purpose of this video, I want to show from scratch. So I created a sample game here. It's called Match 3 Example Game for the podcast. But I'm going to show you how that works just in case you're not too familiar with Unity. I won't do it now because it takes a little while for Unity to build the base project. But I grabbed the Universal 2D project, which is a URP pipeline, if you're familiar with that. And I named it, let's see if this is going to work. Does it still have the same name? Yeah, Match 3 was the name of the project. Okay, so as it says, it's already created one. I'm not going to hit go here, but I basically press go, and it creates this little project right here. Here's the folder, Match 3. Game for podcast, and I actually have the game loaded here. So this is what it looks like. It's just a simple game. There's nothing in there. Okay, there's no really scene assets other than the scene itself. There's some settings things. There's no assets. And if I run it, you'll see it's got to build it for the first time. It hasn't done that. But there's really nothing in here besides the default blue and all that kind of stuff. So that's it. So with this in mind, you go to VS Code. I've installed VS Code, of course, a while back, and I've already opened the folder for that game. Okay, so there it is right there, and I selected that folder, and this is it. And so you have, just the base scene, nothing special there. And then once you got that, you then go in and you start working with Cline. Now let me talk a little bit about Cline first. So Cline is an open source GitHub project. You can download it, install it for free. It's my favorite workflow experience, and it was created by this guy named Saud Rizwan. So I encourage you to get on there and follow him and try Cline out. It's really wonderful. But it's a plugin. You get installed. Actually, I think you install it from the Microsoft, the plugin store here. You can install it from plugin store. VS Code has their own plugin store that you can install it. Anyhow, so this is the experience. It remembers all of your history, which is here. And so all the stuff I've ever tried is listed there. And here's the settings. So you choose whatever API endpoint or company that you're going to be working with. Here's Anthropic. And you put in your Anthropic key or your API key. And you choose the model that they have available. And Sonnet is the one you're going to want to use. Although Haiku is pretty good too. Sonnet gets overwhelmed and then you kick it down to Haiku and kind of get you through. But my original work was a Sonnet. And I put in this system prompt because it kept taking away all of my comments, and I really want to keep the comments. And so my system prompt, which means I don't have to deal with this later, it sends it every time, which is keep all the existing comments when you rewrite code. Do not remove the code comments. And that usually has worked really well, but you still have the ability with this workflow to choose which ones you keep. It gives you a diff, which I'll show you in just a minute. Okay, so the command that I used, I pulled this from the history, which again is right here. There's my history. Is I have a blank Unity or URP project. Help me create a Match 3 game. And remember, this is sitting inside the project directory. I'm sitting in the assets directory here, okay? So go here, and then I run it. Okay, so it's sending the command off to Anthropic's interface, and of course it is specified Sonnet. Now, for some reason tonight, it's been taking a little while, so I'm going to pause the video for a moment until it starts working, and then I'll come back. It normally doesn't take too long, but let me do that. Okay, cool. So it looks like it started, and I caught it just after it began. So the first thing it wants to do is create a new file, tile.cs. That's perfect. And what you see on the left and right is the diff experience that comes in VS Code, and Cline is taking advantage of that. I don't have a file named tile.cs. It's gone over here and made one. And it's a basic setup, you know. Of course, it knows it's in Unity, so there's the mono behavior reference, and which makes this available to manipulate stuff in the environment, in the Unity environment. Okay, and it's going to do some basic initialization around positions, excuse me, and do some updates as it's moving around. I'm going to see that's great. I'm going to save. Okay, and then it's going to go into its next step. All right, now it's creating the board, which is perfect. I'm going to need a board to manage the tiles. That makes sense to me. Again, generating from complete scratch here. And it's doing things already. You can tell. Let's see if I can get it to sort of let me go up. It's fighting me a little bit, but it's already doing things like, you know, what happens when something's clicked. So again, brings in the Unity information, the model behavior. It already is giving me the ability to do some serialization work and that kind of stuff. And let me kind of go down here and see. Initializing the board. Let's get everything all set up. Create the tiles at different locations. If the tile is clicked, what do you do? And it's checking to see if it's adjacent, because you know this is going to be, if you get 3 in a row, then it matches. And you can do swaps. So if you click 2 tiles, it'll swap. This is exactly how the one that I generated back in October was working. And when it's done, you can have checking for matches. And then it'll go through all the tiles in the grid, and it'll check for all the matches. And then, of course, if they match, it goes through and removes them, and then adds in replacement tiles. So that looks great. I'm going to save on that one. And it's going to keep going. You can see what it's doing all along, right? Creating the board script. First, we need to go in. This is all the prompt information telling me what it's going to do. So here's the board, the tile, and of course it's going to give me a game manager because it's making a game. And so now it's off to that. It's going to say, well, I made the tile, made the board. Let's go ahead and make the game itself. Save on that. And while I'm waiting on that to come in, let's see here. Okay, it's going to make prefabs for me. This is really nice. We'll see if this actually works. It probably won't because it can't make prefabs. But let's let it go as far as it can as it thinks through how it's going to do these things, okay? Okay, so shell integration, it's going to want to have, I can't remember exactly what it is, either a PowerShell integrated or what have you. So it's going to complain a little bit about that. So I didn't like that, but it would tell me what to do next if I was going to create prefabs. And so I forgot about that little piece. I can't remember exactly what I had to set up to make that work. But that's okay. I'm not going to be having it make components and that kind of stuff. But it does tell you, fine, I went this far, now you can do further. And it says, hey, let me explain more. So this is fine. So they gave me the base pieces. It's not going to do anything in the scene. Although I want to say that when I built it originally, it did help me to build a scene. But let's kind of jump over into Unity a minute. Unity's going to consume all those updates. It always does that live. I'm sure it's going to have some sort of errors because it doesn't have any user interface components. Oh, no problem. Okay, so it didn't have any problems. But you can see here, it's already got the scripts directory. There's my board class. There's my game manager. And there is the tile. I'm just curious for the game manager what it gave us. It gave just a start. There's a score reference here. Okay, fine. And then there's the updating of that. And I'm sure the board tells it to update. Okay, so the next thing you do as a Unity developer is you should add in basically empty objects to handle these. Okay, so I'm going to call this the game manager. If I can type. There we go. I'm going to also make a board manager. I think we would just call it board in this case if you see it didn't put manager. And then a tile. And that's actually what happened originally as well. So tile. Okay, let me just rename it. Okay, there we go. And then you just attach these scripts to those. Like that. Yeah, there we go. Game manager and tile. And the reason why you want to do that is because there's just going to be these publicly available, publicly settable things. In this case, game manager is looking for text and doesn't have one. So let me go in and create basically a text mesh pro text. I'm going to call it score and rename, so score. Cool. Okay. So then, of course, the game manager is looking for that. I'll just drag that over there. And now the game manager can manage the score. Let's see what the board wants. The board has the default settings, 8x8. Tiles are 1. Okay. And now it's also looking for a stack of prefabs. So I got to give it some. It doesn't have any right now. You also see here it's importing the Text Mesh Pro stuff. Not really going to do that in this script. Okay. I just want to give you a sense of what it was to start from scratch. Let's see. So the tile class. It doesn't have any particular items yet, okay? But the board wants to know where the prefabs are for the tiles. And so, of course, those are the little square, the little sprites that I'm going to go across in a different video. Okay, it's just an empty list at the moment. I decided to go ahead and show you what the tile array would look like with prefabs populated in case you've never seen that. So here, I've opened up the SpAIceRocks project, and I'm reselecting board. And on the right-hand side, whereas the empty project that I just showed you had no tiles, this one actually has prefabs here. Just quickly to see what that looks like. Prefabs are just part of these mineral, in this case I have Mineral Atlas that I've brought in, which is a fancy way of saying a big picture. And all of these gems here, which again we'll talk about more about how those are made later, but they are listed as prefabs. And those prefabs are dragged onto the elements that you see here in this little array. And the main thing is that the prefabs are not they're not hard-coded in terms of their layout. It's dynamically populated by that board manager based on how many columns and rows that you want. All right, so that's a quick sample. I'll be talking more about those assets in a future video, but I thought at least you'd like to see what that looks like to help complete the conversation for today. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what it is like to work in with the API, the console, if you will, for Anthropic. Okay, so when you sign up, I want to be clear about one thing. If you happen to use Claude, the chat interface, you can get that for free. You can also pay for it. I pay a monthly fee to use Claude because I use it a lot. That is not the same thing as the Anthropic API. It's a different pay structure, and so that's a monthly fee for Claude to talk to it. You can do it for free, but if you want a lot more time with it, you pay more money. You pay a monthly fee. For the Anthropic API, it's pay as you go. So it's super friendly. You go in, and I'll show you that interface in a minute. But once you're in, it's a real friendly interface. You can look at logs and see everything. And this is an example of what it looks like. So I'm going to show you, let me go back to October when I first started building the game. And you can see the number of tokens that I used to start building the game. So you can see where I really started to get into it. Again, nights and weekends, you might remember from the first video, nights and weekends. And okay, tokens may not make too much sense to you. So let me switch over to what I spent, because I think that's really interesting. So here it is in October. Likely I really started in earnest trying out Anthropic's API with Claude to make the game, probably on the 17th. I spent the most money, a whopping $6 here. And I did a little more the next week, and then I really got back into it the week after as I started doing some things. So that's October. So let's just say that's $19. November, I also spent evenings and weekends working on it there. Now, by the time I got to November 19th, actually, I already had the game. It was already built. I had already worked on it a lot with some other generative AI solutions as well. This is more agentic AI as well as generative, but I basically already built the game. By November 19th, I was trying to get onto the App Store with Steam, and it's just a horrendously long process. But probably by the 19th or so, I was creating assets, and I did some scripting there too. But really, it was during this period here that I was building the game. So let's just kind of roll it up. Let's say it's $11. Okay, and then in December, I did something. I actually don't know what I was doing in December. I don't think I was really dealing much with the game at that point. But let's add in. I didn't do anything in January with the game. I haven't done anything with the game since maybe trying to get something done fixed. Let's say I was trying to get something done on the 14th. Altogether, $32 for all the code that is in SpAIceRocks. And yes, I did a little code here myself, as I was doing some things, but $32 to get as far as I've gotten in the game is pretty darn brilliant. And I'll show you what the experience looks like in terms of billing. So you go in, you do give them a credit card, you put in like $25 to get started. And you can set a limit, but it's pay as you go, as I said earlier. And so it's not just sucking money out of your bank account every month, it's just as you use it, which is really slick. So let me go to the month of October. Here's where it shows. This is September. Let's see. This was a little tiny in September. Oh, I see, yeah. So here, October to November 1st, this is the usage. The finalized is the usage. The issue, I think, is when they charge you. And so if I scroll down, you can see here where I used 3.5 Sonnet, and it was their October 22 version. And I can't remember exactly what the total is here, but it's just a few dollars is what it was. Okay, there's the rate that they use, and then the few dollars. Scroll up a little bit. I was also using their June model, and it switched over in October, and I used some money there. Opus, I was using Opus. I think when I first started out, I was using Opus, but Opus is super expensive as far as the per unit price. So once I realized that what I was doing, I got away from Opus and went to Sonnet. I think they were trying to discourage using Opus. And then Haiku showed up. There's 3, and I want to say, is the 3.5 showing up yet? I can't remember 3.5. But you see I used a little bit of their Haiku model as well. So that's what it looks like. And, I spent $18. So it hit the $10 mark, and then it charged it back up with $25, like it says here. Super friendly, and you never really use, it's not charging you for anything you don't use. You have API keys. So if I look back on here, let me filter on, can I filter this one? I was looking to filter earlier on my API key usage. Yeah, so I have 3. The Cline one is the one that just tracks my usage of Cline inside of VS Code. So that's it. So this video, as I mentioned earlier, we're just touching on a couple things, how I originally did it, as well as the costs. Next time, we'll be looking at comparisons with GitHub, as well as trying to make some changes. Some of the stuff I did to not just from scratch, but start adding in functionality and that kind of stuff. Anyway, thanks for your time. I appreciate it, and we will talk soon.